Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we will continue with a topic on how to use feather and feather-like elements, plums in triangle space, because this is one of the very common elements in patchwork, in different patchwork blocks, and sometimes it may we may have a problem how to quilt it. And I know from experience that using feathers, it gives you always this timeless appeal to your quilts. They always look good, and doesn't matter if it's a large quilt, if it's a pillow, or it's a very nice table runner. Feathers and plums look always good. So I am just marking now around this time when I'm talking. I have here a rectangle of about 10 inches wide and 8.5 inches long. Why such a size? Because it was fitting to the size of the fabric and the batting that I had. And when I'm making such projects that are not specific, they do not have specific designation, I adjust the size to the fabric that I have. It's nothing wrong with being frugal or effective. So, in the last video I got questions about the thread. So the answer is, in this case I'm using bright yellow polyester embroidery thread. Most of the time it performs very well. Sometimes it gives me some trouble, but that depends also on this what I'm using in the bobbin. And my bobbin thread is 50 weight cotton thread. Most of the time I'm not naming any brands in my videos because I'm not paid for commercial. I am, when asked, I am giving the answer in the comments. But I tend to use a bit better quality thread because I had already cases where I got 50 weight threads from different vendors that were kind of short time lived, and those threads frayed very fast, and I actually had to repair some of my quilts, and they frayed very just after a few washings, and I think that's not acceptable. So I have some brands that I like. Some I found they are not typical quilting threads, they are embroidered threads, but they perform quite nicely. So today, what is the idea about today? Actually, it's still about combining the arches and the feathers, and let me start with a similar approach like in the last video. So I'm using right now, you can see I'm using my oval ruler, spindle shaped, I think that's the correct name, and I will quilt now a spine, an arch spanning across the base of my triangle. You've seen again I divided it with straight lines on the diagonal to have 4 triangles, and we will fill them today with 2 different strategies, and we will simply modify the plums and the feathers. And today we are concentrating on symmetrical feathers. And symmetry, it's one way to cheat into perfection. So I like to use symmetrical designs simply to obtain the impression of perfection, even if it's not. So actually what we are starting with quilting an arch from the base to my spine, That's why practicing arches is useful. Then immediately going here, another arch, and then I will try to be as symmetrical as possible on the other side. And I have two central plums now in my center, in the lower part of my triangle and in the upper one. And everything what I will do now is to quilt feather starting from the middle. And because I want to be effective, I will do that immediately on the both sides. And again, bounce back feather is perfect in this application. And if we will quilt them simultaneously, we will enhance this impression of perfection, because we will have matching pairs of plums on both sides of my arch, main arch. Here I have already a little bit less space, so my plums will be smaller, but that's not a problem. The center is most critical one. Okay, one side is done. We are traveling to the other side. We can also travel on the base, then we would start the same way like the previous one, but both strategies are acceptable. What I actually like is if I have a very wide border, that I would divide it into triangles and then fill it with such elements. It's classics and it simply always looks good. So it's worth of investing your time to learn how to quilt the feathers and how to get this sharp point, this nice round and juicy shape. I don't know why, but feathers always look kind of juicy to me. They are so nice and round. So, the first one is done. Let me show you once more how it looks like now. So here we go. And as you see, I am cheating. I am using symmetry on both sides to achieve this appearance of very nice, almost perfect quilting, even if it's not. So the other idea, the beginning is exactly the same. So we are starting with quilting an arch. Only we will add some embellishment in case you are not, you simply like a little bit more rich quilting, like as I like to call it, Baroque quilting. Why Baroque quilting? Because Baroque was all in this period of history. One could have impression that the that people were afraid of empty spaces. and they were filling it with all kinds of decoration. So again, straight roller, we will start the same way. In the middle, we will quilt an arch. That's why I made this another arch. It's kind of like asymmetric 8. And now actually what I need to do is, actually I can leave it. So what I will do now, we are repeating the same. So we are quilting feathers on both sides. I am missing the line and my stitches are not traveling perfectly, I'm just adding more thread to it and it's not a problem. So now it's the time to introduce the difference to the previous design. Everything what I'm doing now is to, as I go back, I am adding my middle stitch to my plums, making them look more foliage-like. And you can simply add paisleys or loops inside. That's another option. But in this case, I simply like the straight line, the lines. It's like very shallow arches. Half arches. This little difference, this little detail changes the design quite a lot. And in the middle you can just add wavy line. Will also distract from the fact that I didn't get the arch shape here perfectly because I went off a little bit, but after I will add all the elements, it will be not that important. can add the lines immediately as you go, every 2 plums. But as I said, I like the traveling in the middle. I like to accentuate it even more. And that's why I do it on the way back. It's all about your personal preferences. Feel inspired and then do your own thing. That's the best measure of your development as a quilter. Some of you like less dense quilting, some of you like a little bit more detail. I love the dense quilting, but I do not always have the time for it. And I'm also a very practical person, so for large project I will opt for less dense quilting so I have the project done. But on a small one, I like to go really all in. So that would be the second option, and we can compare, and you can see the detail and the texture looks completely different, even if we started exactly the same way. And look, if you look at it, because of the symmetry design, you hardly notice here that I didn't get the art really perfect. But it really does not matter. You can make such, they are not even mistakes. We are humans. We lead by hand. This is not a computer driven quilting. And that means from time to time there will be some imperfections, little points of interest, but you cannot see them in the amount of detail. And probably that's one of the other reasons why I like very dense quilting, because you cannot see that it's not perfect. So now the idea number 3, it's in the previous 2 we were using arches, large arches, to divide our triangles into 2 parts, and we were quilting symmetrical designs on both sides. We can do the same but without subdivision, with the arch on the longer base of the quilt. And for that, let me use a smaller. I got me, actually there was, those rulers were like 3 or 4 at a time, and I can place them on the height of my symmetrical triangle, and I can use it to quilt the main central arch element, this main plum. I can start at the top, I can start at the bottom, doesn't really matter. And again, I'm playing with the symmetry. So first let's start with the basic one. I'm placing one of my lines on the line. I marked the central line here, and I will place it like that on the other side. And in this way, again, I will kind of cheat that I have perfectly symmetrical shape. And I will go immediately on the other side. Having an open ruler is better, because then you can just switch to the convex, and between convex and concave. Here I have to operate on this side, and you see sometimes it's not, it's more difficult for me when I hold the ruler on this side. So, but it doesn't matter. One line of traveling, and it doesn't really matter that the shape is a little bit off. different proportions. It may be faster to quilt, but because you have to keep the arch a bit longer, it is actually a bit more difficult for beginner quilters. But I promise you, you will get there with time and practice. I quilt since 7 years now on a like really intense level. First, I simply needed to get my little space where I could just leave my quilting there, and I didn't have to rebuild, bring the machine on, set everything up. Once I had my little sewing space, I could just get to it whenever I wanted. And I noticed that there are shapes where I am just natural at. With some motifs I need practice, I need to remember how to do that. And in the beginning they will be wobbly, even with this 7 years experience now. They will be wobbly and not perfect, and after some time, when I will get into the groove, I will get the suitable mojo, like for the feathers lately, and then the shapes will be fine again. So, the first element is ready, and we can see it very nicely. Because this was a rectangle, so this quarter is a little bit taller than the other ones. And this looks very slim, very elegant, and I like it a lot. So what we can do with this element and how we can make it prettier or more detailed. So the beginning again is the same. Only this time it will be better if I will start at the top, because I will be adding some extra elements there. So again, my ruler, and this is a bit long, so I have to kind of look under it and aim. This is the disadvantage of using the domestic machine. Also, I have camera here directly, and I have to be careful not to hit it with my head when I quilt. Okay. And again, remembering I need to have a 1/4 inch offset. We will bring it down, and now it worked way better than the first time. So you see, sometimes I actually need an exercise. And now what I will do, I will simply add an echo line. So I am actually observing my previously quilted line, and I just eyeball it. It looks good. So, and actually, just to make fun, because it's a pretty large space, we can add some nice circles. We can add just nice pebbles. If you have problems with the perfectly round shape, don't worry about it. Just go with back and forth lines, or just go with ovals, because they are much easier to handle. bottom, and we can add an echo line inside. In this case, we are not traveling back on the outside of the feather. I went over the other one, but that's okay. In this quilting density, it's not so critical. Sometimes it's a problem if I have a large quilting space on this side, because then it has different stiffness, and when I'm hitting the outside of my machine, such things, little things here happens. Actually, I crossed over like 3 millimeters, and it's because of this that suddenly there was more resistance on one side of my quilt. I did not accommodate, or I did not account for. So now on this side should be better. If you quilt with a neutral thread color, the one that blends very nicely with the fabric, then even you don't have to worry about such little imperfections, because they will be simply not visible. I like sewing and quilting with contrasting thread because it helps me to see what are the issues that are responsible for missed line, for on which side I have to work a little bit more. Simply I see every little imperfection, or every little, I don't want to use the word mistake, because we learn and we are humans and imperfections happen. This is not a bad word in this case, but some things are resulting from me not understanding how my quilt sandwich, my machine interact with each other. And because I'm using a contrasting thread, then I can see at which moment such event happens, and then I can understand it better. If I'm using all the time blending thread, I'm much more relaxed, of course, and actually there the quilting is immediately much better, but then I'm not paying that much attention to the surroundings, so my learning curve is a little bit less steep, which is also not a bad thing. Simply because I am making those videos for you, I want to provide for you as good quality and as good content as I can. And here we see the final one, and again it looks completely different. So now let me change the camera settings and show you more in detail and with zoomed out settings. Let us have a direct comparison. That was the feather pattern we started with, symmetrical on both sides, with an arch spanning across the base of our triangle. The triangle is a bit more shallow here on this side because we have a rectangular element to fill. On the other side, the same principle of quilting, the same strategy, but I added some little details to my plums, changing completely the character of my pattern. In the other two triangles, we see here it's more, please just because of this, how I feel the feather, it's not looking like a feather anymore. It's actually looks like a mussel, shell, seashell. That's the word I'm looking for. It looks more like a seashell with its nice symmetry and nice shape. And again, how much it changes when I'm looking some decorative elements. So if I'm adding echo lines, and here I can use whatever filler I want. I can use swirls, I can use pebbles, I can use ovals, or also nested arches. The choice is yours. I hope you will use those elements for your practice. You will try your own ideas. You will discover what you like and what you don't like, and that you will use it on your quilts, and you will simply have fun enjoying the final effect, because that's what it is all about for me as well. I wish you very good quilting. I wish you very good progress learning, making mistakes, learning your lessons, and moving on, and hopefully talk to you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.